What to do? This is the Brothers on Books podcast where we find great books that will give you real value and actionable steps and have fun in the process. Please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations or if you would like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. For the original episodes, the OGs, please visit brothersonbooks.com. Also, reach out to us at Instagram at Brothers on Books. And then finally, we recently partnered with Encha Matcha. So for all your matcha loving needs, go to Encha Matcha and get 20% off when you use our coupon code. With me, as always, is my lovely brother Jack. Jack, how you doing?
Pretty good, Al. Today's the first recording where we are actually recording on different days. Can you believe that?
That is that's true. That is interesting. Yes.
And with us is a longtime friend, Ashley Klein, because I had her read a book many years ago, and it made such an impression that she had to come on. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. It's great to be here. I'm very nervous, but very excited.
Well, what was this book that you had Ashley read, Jack?
This was Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek. And it's been recently expanded and updated for those interested. But yeah, that's the book. So
yeah, it was. I audibly groaned when I realized it was like there's more pages.
So Ashley, let's do first reactions. Why did you hate this book so much?
I remember, so let me tell you, I met Jack in like February, March of 2016. And a few months after meeting, you said, Ashley, you need to read this book. It is incredible. And every step of the way I read it, I was like, I hate this. I really hate this. I really do not like this book. But I powered through and I read it because Jack was my new friend. And I wanted to be supportive and I wanted to see what it was that he liked so much. And I did not like it. And then fast forward to now, 2023, and Jack and Al are doing a books podcast. And I said, Jack, it'd be really cool if I join you on this podcast and we read this book and I tell you about how much I hate it. And we have a lively discussion about why that's the case.
I mean, just to start off, I have to say you're a pretty dedicated friend to read a book you don't like just to prove your friendship. Because I've had many girlfriends that haven't gotten through books that I've recommended to them, and I was dating them. So kudos to you for that, actually.
Thank you. And Jack's a good guy. Of course, I'm going to read the book you recommended. And then I'm going to sit there and be like, why did he recommend this? Why does he like this so much?
Okay, so Al, what were your now you had read this before, or is this more recent for you? Was this like your first go through?
No, I read this book. I think I read it right before. It was either right before I left Nashville or right before I moved to Birmingham. So probably in between a year and a half and 2 years ago, I read this the first time, and I think like most of the population, I thought, man, this book was incredible. Just absolutely life-changing. Mindset altered, philosophy about how things should be done totally changed. And then I couldn't find my copy, so I didn't want to buy it again. So I just downloaded it off of my library app and I listened to it at work this next go through. So this time I just listened to it, but I had read it previously and I thought it was good. Very insightful. I thought definitely changes the way you should think about how you set up your life and more or less like what you should be striving for is how I kind of took it. How about you, Jack?
So 2015, I think, is when I first read this book. And I remember it being somewhat life-changing in how I viewed what was possible. And this guy is basically describing how to, produce more while exerting less energy or outsourcing certain activities or working remotely, which is kind of the world we're living in right now. And Ashley, you are a remote worker now, correct?
I am now. Yes, now I am.
So the fact that you are now a remote worker, does this part of the book do you feel more free now that you can work from wherever.
Yes and no. And that's also another reason why I wanted to bring this book up again, is because I really did not care for it in 2016, and what this book was written in 2007. So even in like 2016, it might have been a little outdated, but the fact that now we're in 2023 in a post-pandemic world, it's like, okay, now how does this book fit? Like, how does it work now with the remote workers? But I think what Tim is getting at is automation, which is pretty much like, I'm not going to do anything. So yeah, I'm remote, but I'm not doing anything. But I work remote now in a remote job that's hourly. So I still need to clock in 40 hours a week. So it's a little different.
I think the point is though, like at your day-to-day job, and I feel like you could really exemplify this as a hourly worker and remote. Like at your day-to-day job when you would go in, like how many hours, you know, how many hours were you actually working? Or could you have been more efficient and like not necessarily taking a full 8 hours of a day? You sort of understand what I'm getting at, or like could you like just clock in, finish all your work in 2 hours, and then at the end of the day clock out? Is that something, you could do? And then you would have 6 hours to just kind of, do whatever you want to do.
I mean, so my job now, I'm a buyer at a hospital. So I'm working with the supply chain. So throughout the day, I need to be connected to the computer, because if you have the inventory control specialist like pinging into your email saying, hey, I need a rush order, like you got to get on that to get it for the hospital. So it's not really like I don't have a job where it's like, okay, 2 hours and then I can dig around. It's like I clock in from an 8 hour shift so I can get stuff done. And it is really nice to work from home, to be able to, have like 5 minutes downtime. I'm gonna do the dishes. I'm gonna do the load of laundry. Like that's really nice. So I like that, but I don't think this is what Tim is getting at, because he would look at me like I am chained to my computer and I am not being the new rich, even though like I don't know. I think this is what it mostly is for remote workers. Like you are still chained to your computer with some flexibility.
Yeah, and I think there's some type of ethical or moral kind of balancing that goes on, like, because I think he's kind of like, oh well, you can have your hourly job, but maybe you should train someone in like India or the Philippines to do it for a cheaper rate, and then you train them, and then and then you just sit back and collect the difference. How do we feel about that?
I mean, I think that's someone. I read a story about an engineer doing that at a big company a while back, and they got into a lot of trouble. I think you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful about what you're outsourcing if you're high up in a company, especially if you're like, make sure you're not like outsourcing IP or anything, because that can get you into a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
Uh,
I actually that's part, like one thing is like, well, as an actuary doing that type of work, I would not feel comfortable outsourcing those things that I'm kind of dependent on for. So that's part of the book I don't really agree with fully, but I do think, what do you think just about his like mindset on like exploiting certain rules? Because the part where he describes how he became like a national kickboxing champion in China by not really kickboxing is kind of a cool story. Do you guys remember this part or not really?
yeah, I remember that part.
So I think it was like just 2 days worth, or 2 days worth, he dropped 28 pounds. And he had been a wrestler, so I guess he had that framework to work with. But he dropped 28 pounds to fall in the lower weight group and then put on the weight before the fight, because the weigh-in was like the day or two before. And then he basically would push people out of the ring.
Right.
And that's how he won. And that's really thinking outside the box.
I mean, you have to. I think what he said was he took. I'm assuming since he was part of some like sports thing, he had some type of supplement that would massively dehydrate you. And I think that's how he lost the weight, and then he just got all of it back right before the fight. You have to really have some know-how on how to do that, because I don't think a normal person could go do that.
He did say don't try it at home, and that he did do it under medical supervision.
Right.
But it just goes to show like what type of like thinker he is. And but so one of the criticisms I've heard of this book, maybe, and this is along Ashley's thinking too, is like some people just disagree. Like it's that he's such a different type of thinker that it's not really relatable. Like he's like very unusual in that way. And well, is that something that's learned, or is that something that's just innate?
Oh, I think you can totally learn that type of thinking.
Well, right? Is it okay?
So
you want to expand a little?
I'll go.
Oh, I mean, I was just like before, you just hear some like the BA stuff. Like I would have never thought about doing that. The drop shipping. I mean, I was looking at shirt designs after he was talking about the dude who had the French shirt. I went back and started looking at making an Etsy site, and how to just sort of do like shipping through Amazon. I think once wow, it's a fly. I think once you hear someone else talk about this stuff and then you implement it, like anyone can do it. Like, I think sort of house hacking is a good example. Before I think I did it, I would have never really thought about it. And then I think once you did it, now it seems so commonplace, but a lot of people don't ever think about it. But once you do it, like it seems like second nature. So those are my thoughts.
I guess my thoughts on him are like when Jack brought up the story about how he was when Jack brought up the story about how his kickboxing lost all that weight, is he's taking shortcuts. I feel like his whole life and what led him to doing what he's doing is taking shortcuts. He like wasn't, when he was going to Princeton, it was like, hey, I just like barely got in, like shortcut. And then while he was in Princeton, he's like, I'm going to teach people how to do the sight reading. And then it's just like, because like, why wouldn't you want to read the book? I don't know. I understand like sight reading has its benefits, but
right, it wasn't sight, it was speed reading.
He did, yeah, speed reading. Did I say that? Sight reading?
Sight reading.
Okay, sorry. Let me start over. Speed reading. Like he's trying to like do the easy way out with things. And even when he had the brain quicken, it's like, okay, well, the easy way to make money is I'm getting some other company to make this and then I'm selling it. It just seemed like it just reeks of so much sidelining. And I actually did take notes. It was like, that's why I bought this book. I bought this book so I could take notes. If I can find it. Yeah, so taking shortcuts, because he says, can a business be used to change the world like the Body Shop or Patagonia? Yes, but that isn't our goal here. Can a business be used to cash out through an IPO or sale? Yes, but that isn't our goal either. Our goal is simple, to create an automated vehicle for generating cash without consuming time. That's it.
There you go.
That's the whole thing. And I don't, it's like, it's so vapid. It's so.
What's wrong with, outsourcing everything, automating everything, getting some cash, and then going to tango classes in Argentina?
I guess, yeah, actually the question is, if you were not constrained by money, like what would you do?
I mean, there's a lot, because I guess also too, I feel very constrained in the United States for the healthcare because I have diabetes, and it's like I need healthcare. I need a job with healthcare. So I feel like I can't really do what he's saying because I don't have that freedom. I really don't have that freedom to be like working a job like that. So so that's another reason why I don't like this book, is I feel like, and I know he would be like, you can't say no. Like there's no such thing as saying no, like you can do it. And it's like, yeah, I guess you can do it, but there is, I do need that stability.
Have you ever considered moving countries?
Yeah, and I was about to ask.
Because I mean, I don't really know what the diabetes situation is in other. Is that something?
It's better. I mean, now with the whole thing with the insulin for all and the fact that insulin is so expensive, like almost like $1,000 if you're not insured. I mean, it's ridiculous and it's price gouging. And I know in other countries it's not like that. I don't know about like the other devices or whatever. I don't know how it would work. It'd be really nice, but again, it's kind of like, how do I get to that country? How can I take advantage? Because I feel like if you move to another country, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how it would work, which is why I've been moving a lot in the States, because it's like I can do that.
I mean, couldn't you move like 3 hours north and post up in Vancouver and keep your job and then, tap into that Canadian free healthcare that I hear so much about?
I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know how it would work if you live in a different country but work for the States. But would I get the States healthcare or would I get Canada's healthcare? Because that wouldn't be through the job.
I think if you were to go into a Canadian hospital, they would provide you with health care.
I don't know.
Don't quote me on that, but that is how I envisioned. Like Jack, if you were to, if something were to happen to you right now and you had to go to a hospital, you would get Austrian healthcare, wouldn't you? And would you have to pay for it?
Well, I think most American insurances will like the cost, I think, will go towards your deductible, like out of the country, just because the costs outside of the US are so much cheaper that I think they do cover like basically everything. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's kind of the gist, just because it's so much cheaper. But I don't think it goes the reverse way.
Jack,
But
can you go outside and break your leg and then let us know after the hospital bill who's going to pay for it?
Yeah. But that's yeah, it's interesting issue. And I think that's a lot of concerns with Americans. But is it really that we're kind of pigeonholed, or is it more of like a limiting belief? Or is it just that the information is not out there to kind of maybe make a move? But there's also like another thing I do have maybe an issue with his lifestyle is if he's always like traveling to all these different places, how deep are his connections really? Like, does he really have friends in all of these places? Because like, it's one thing to say like, okay, it's a good financial decision to, hop up and move to another country. But like, aren't you going to be like really lonely, or like all your connections are, or is it, how will that affect your personal life and your relationships? So I don't know if he's married or with kids now, to be honest. But I'd be curious.
So that was one of the things because like when I would envision this, I just sort of would like to envision most of the systems in place where I can free up my time, but be, more or less kind of migrating amongst, two or maybe three places at most where I'm spending most of my time. So yeah, you can have friends because at the end of the day, it's like, it's cool to do things, but you want to be doing things with like the people you want to spend time with. Otherwise, it's just sort of empty.
Yeah, but you can always make friends anywhere. That's before I moved out to Seattle, and it was very much like, it's like, but I have my friends in Charlotte, and it's like you can make new friends.
Right, but I'll just say there's a difference. I felt like when I moved to Nashville, it took me a while to make friends. And then when I moved to Birmingham, it took me longer to make friends. And I feel like if I were to stay here another 3 years and I move somewhere else when I'm 35, I think it would take me even longer to make friends. I feel like the older you get and the more you move, it becomes progressively harder to make like really deep connections with people in new cities.
This is so much work.
Right. It is a lot of work.
It is. And I wonder,
it's like a second job.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder too if it has to do with the pandemic, that I feel like if the pandemic didn't happen, would it still have been so hard for you to make friends in Alabama? Yeah, when you move there.
I felt like the pandemic was more or less kind of, at least in red states, the pandemic was treated like it was more or less kind of done, I guess is what I would say.
Plus, most of your life is on the pickleball court, so you're
right. So that's how I was.
So what is there anything you're going to implement from this book? Anything?
So
that question.
I mean, it's an open question.
I think that question's directed at Miss Ashley.
Me. You know what? I did like in the beginning of the book where, okay, I actually had a question about things too, but I did like the fact that he talked about in the beginning of the book that there's no reason to be like a slave to your job, working so many hours for like 30 plus years just to save up for retirement. Like I actually agreed with the fact that he said like live for now, take your mini retirements now, and I actually do agree with that because tomorrow is not guaranteed. And if you have the time and the resources and your health and everything, it's like why not? Like don't just like save up and wait because you don't know what's going to happen 40 years down the line. So I did actually agree with that.
There we go.
So
Don't get
what's
too
your
excited, Jack. That was it.
so Ashley, what's your mini retirement?
My mini retirement, so actually I had the opportunity last summer to take a sabbatical at work. So that was actually really good to get 6 weeks off of work just to kind of travel and do my own thing. And it felt like a really nice mini refresh. But
Wow, 6
So
weeks.
what did you do during that time?
I did some like I traveled by myself, which was something I've never done before. Was in Arizona and California and driving through and just, visiting different cities and just, I don't know, it was just really good. And it was just something I really needed because I wasn't really in a good place mentally. And when I was working at Whole Foods, they actually do offer that. So if there's any Whole Foods listeners, if you work at any of the stores for 6,000, if you have 6,000 service hours, you actually can have 6 weeks of an unpaid sabbatical. And I was already at like 10,000 service hours. So I was a Whole Foods expert. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take advantage of the fact that this company offers that. And it was just, and then I did some other traveling. My mom came to visit for a week. Went with a friend of mine, went to the Oregon coast in Portland. So it was just like a really nice, just to like step out of because so I was in a blue state. So the blue state during the pandemic, we took it really seriously. So and I was at working at Whole Foods the entire time and wearing a mask and just like distancing. And it was just like, while I had got to see all these other people get to work remotely, and it's like I still had to go into the office. Like that was it did suck. And
Did you feel resentment over that fact?
maybe a little bit, especially too, because in the beginning of the pandemic, when they weren't sure what was going on or how serious this infection was, the virus was. And for me, it was like, as a diabetic, it's just like, well, what if I get this? Like, and I still have to be here and like help all these, and I still have to be here and put on like a smiling face behind my mask and still work. And well, other people didn't have to do that. I mean, they gave us incentives. They did give us, the city of Seattle actually paid. So at the very beginning of the pandemic, the grocery store did give us $2 extra an hour for like the first 3 months. And then months went by and the city of Seattle was like, we are still in a pandemic and all the grocery workers are still getting paid, crap. So we're going to give them an extra $4 an hour. So it was kind of nice that it was incentivized to stay and work there. But yeah, so just like the pandemic and I had gone through a breakup too. I was dating a guy for like 3 years and it was just like, a few months later and it's just like, I just need to find myself. I just need the time. So I took my mini vacation. But enough about me. We were talking about this book. Like,
No, that's good. That's good for people to hear about like mini retirements because a lot of people just, work, 40 years, whatever, and never really question even the option of taking some time off. So I think it is good. So
and it's true to even the pandemic, just realizing it too. It's like you come first, your job comes second in a sense, your health and well-being. I don't know if it's from being in Seattle, because Seattle actually does a really good job with taking care of their workers. I noticed that between the discrepancies of the Charlotte Whole Foods as opposed to the Seattle Whole Foods, but like they take care of us. It's like, if you're not good, stay home. And like the job doesn't really care about you in a sense, which it sucks to hear that, but you should go to work and do your job and do a good job. But at the end of the day, you come first and your health comes first. And if you need to take a mini break, like it does such a wonder. It's just a step away from work. and just to live, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, what about you? Have you taken a mini retirement?
Mm, I would say I haven't taken, maybe, I don't know, maybe when I quit my job before grad school, when we went to Scandinavia, and then I had another like 2 or 3 weeks off after that where I was just putzing around. That was probably the longest break I've had in a long time. But I was going to say, Ashley, I also felt a lot of resentment when everyone else was working from home and I had to go in the lab every day.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, they sent us home for 2 months. They just had to stop working, which was hands down the best 2 months of grad school of my entire graduate school career.
So that was kind of a
Uh,
mini retirement too.
yeah, I mean, I was technically, quote unquote, writing. Uh, I think during that time, we built a brick grill for dad.
True.
I built a brick mailbox at my house, which had just been destroyed in a tornado. I started building a sauna, which was a lot of fun. I became pretty avid into masonry work, which was a lot of fun. I learned some skills, I guess. Uh, but I guess as far as like retirements, I mean, I would say I haven't done anything like that. I still have another, I think, close to 5 weeks of vacation time this year, so I'll be looking to do something coming up soon.
Nice.
I got 1 week, I got 1.5 weeks penciled off for Vienna. So
Wait, you're going out there this month or?
probably the end of June. I don't know, Jack. Do we have a date set yet? Or
Hell, you just got to book it, I think.
okay, I guess I'm just going, the way of our sister. Just book a ticket and hope you're there. Yeah.
But I think no, I think the mini retirement's a very good takeaway from this book, if nothing else.
Well,
Yeah,
Jack,
because
what's your work situation like currently? Because you're currently in Vienna
I
working
am.
remotely too, yes?
I am buying and selling land out of Arizona from Vienna. So I have for the time being, I did quit my actuarial job. And I'm buying and selling land and trying to get the rent. We're just easing some of the rental unit situation issues out, and trying to work, taking some time to work on the podcast and do some other passion projects. So I guess I'm in a slight mini retirement right now, perhaps. But I will say, like, in when I lost a job in 2016, if I hadn't lost that job, I might have just stayed there doing the same old thing for years and years and years and not questioning anything. But that was kind of like a forced mini retirement, but I got like 6 months off there because I wanted to stay in Charlotte. So I kind of took my time in getting another job. And that's when I went on the trip to Europe and I met my wife Elena. So that was cool. So that's a pro of mini retirements. There you go. And ever since getting fired from that job, it's made it a little less scary to quit and just take some time off because like a lot of people think that's like the worst thing that could ever happen. And I was like, oh, if this is the worst that could happen, I'm okay, kind of. I just feel like, okay, I'll be okay. And yeah, like the health thing's a big one because now, I mean, we've played a lot of sports, starting to get aches and pains. And yeah, you just can't really take your health for granted. And you really want to, take advantage while you can and because there's not a lot of 60-year-olds hiking Machu Picchu right now.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I
So
mean, you can go to Machu Picchu pretty easily, but if you're doing the 3 day or the 3 day hike, you're probably in relatively good physical condition. Uh, I would say he actually mentioned in the book that getting fired a lot of times is a blessing. because it takes the decision out of your hands. And then the other thing that sort of touches on what you just said was he talks about thinking about like the absolute worst thing that could happen, like if you're getting fired and like how you would react to that. And I did do this, and after you think about it, you do kind of realize that in essence, it's not really that bad. Like you will be able. I don't know. I feel like most humans are pretty resourceful when push comes to shove, and they would be able to figure out how to live or how to survive. Or if you needed to come up with like a couple extra $1,000, most people could probably do it. Maybe I'm totally out of touch with most of humanity though, but I do believe that.
Yeah,
So
Americans. I think right now I saw the latest stat was like 70% of Americans couldn't come up with like a $400 emergency, which is kind of scary to think about, and that kind of gets you back to like reality a little. But so people are definitely struggling compared to 5 years ago, I guess. But
okay, so about that stat, I heard that was people didn't have $400 in like a savings account. Not that they
okay,
couldn't come up with $400 because it was like you
okay,
could just charge it like what most people do anyway. Um,
okay, okay, fair enough. So, but I think like is in the and I think the thing for like people in who are really deep in the weeds on like personal finance, like a lot of them are like, no, I can't, stop working because like the compounding's, so much more important early on. And I just gotta, keep grinding. But like it's easy to, I guess, optimize like with a math problem, but it's like harder to optimize like happiness and relationships. So I think some of the faults on like the personal finance groups are they are a little bit just too much about the money and optimizing like their net worth, for example. But don't because it's hard to measure like happiness, I guess. And I don't know. What would you say on that?
yeah, so my main takeaway of this book was to essentially have an end goal in mind of like what you want. Because like you said, a lot of the fire people, I feel like when I listen to them talk, it's all about just hitting their number and then retiring, but they have no goal in place or no end game in place of like what they're actually going to do other than just the very nebulous statement of travel the world and or do whatever you want. But I feel like people get bored pretty quickly doing that. So I feel like it's very important to have some type of like like passion that you want to work on, like you actually want to spend time doing once you've enabled yourself to free up your time to go, actually have the time to do it. Um, so I think the old like kind of thought process that you should like think about what you want your life to be and then work towards that goal, setting your life up around that. Uh, Ashley, thoughts?
I mean, it's so hard now to have a goal because of things being laid off, like jobs or whatever. So if you have a goal, especially now, like they kept telling us years ago, you gotta learn how to code. You gotta code, do all this coding stuff. They had HTML for babies, and they kept pushing us to learn how to code. And now all of a sudden, there's been a huge tech layoff of coding, I guess, because you've already created the code. Now the companies are like, well, screw you guys, like we got the code, and it's like now what? And I think it's so hard to have goals, and like it's really hard to have the job security too. I mean,
Well, I mean, what about like personal goals? I mean, you must have some personal goals, I would say.
I do have personal goals. I mean, but it changes though too, and it is nice to have, like I've actually gotten really into reading during the pandemic, and but like I wasn't a big reader beforehand. Well, I did read. If someone said read a book like Jack in 2016, hey, read this. Yeah, sure. I will take that on. But yeah, I guess I don't know. I don't know, it's something to think about, like personal projects and I guess it depends, like hobbies, like, dancing or art or.
What about drumming? I heard you were an avid drummer at one point.
I did one. Jack had his keyboard and I did the drums. This is back in Charlotte. And then we like noodled around for a bit. And then was all like, I got fired and I'm running away to Europe. The band is over.
Oh man.
See, I got laid off. Got laid off with a band.
That's right.
No stability. Even then.
So let's so maybe something more concrete for the listeners. What about like just batching your emails? Well, what do we think about this idea of only looking at emails like a certain number of times, either a day or a week? Because that was one thing that I was able to kind of change my thinking on pretty quickly the first time I read it. And I like that idea of batching social media or emails. What do we think of that idea?
I think it's good for mental health and to kind of like, distance yourself from being so available. But again, it depends on the job. Like I said, for my job, if they come in and say, hey, we need this rush, because I work on the surgery team. So it's like, hey, we need this rush for surgery tomorrow. This needs to be like, I needed to be at the computer at that time to see that email. So professionally, no, I can't do that. But I mean, personally, like sometimes I do take breaks from Instagram where I'll just like log off for a couple weeks at a time just to be like, I just need a break.
Mm-hmm.
But
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I would say the way I'm emailed is drastically different than the types of emails he's responding. I mean, most of the emails I get are trash. I don't even bother reading them to begin with. And if I get an email from my direct boss, I'll open it and read it. Otherwise, essentially, no email I'm getting has any benefit to me, and I don't even really bother. So I guess in some regards, I already do that. Occasionally, I'll get an email about a training, so I'll then go to the training. But that's about it. My personal email, I get spammed a lot of email. So I'm getting messages from a lot of like box stores that I never read. Right now, I'm trying to sell my old car, so I am constantly now checking my email because I'm talking to three guys off Craigslist trying to sell my car. So that's been a little annoying. But other than that, yeah, I think it's a good idea. And the way he's describing it, yeah, if I had to spend 6 hours a day answering email, I would not be in that job because I would not be doing it well. I mean, it's honestly like if you have to spend 6 hours a day answering email, like what are you doing? Like, how can you be productive?
Yeah.
Like, how is
I mean,
it possible?
it's a good sign you're getting so much. Well, unless if it's complaints, it's one thing. But then it goes back to the idea of kind of firing the people that are causing the problems, or like because he talks about that Pareto rule or the 80-20 rule. I think most people know about it. Like, 20% of the inputs lead to 80% of the results, and kind of firing the 20% of the people that are causing 80% of the complaints. I do like that. And giving people more independence on dealing with problems. Like he started saying, like initially, I think the people who he was working with or he hired, he said, okay, anything over $100, I want to know about the complaint. Anything less, take care of it on your own, use your discretion. And then gradually over time, he like raised that limit to give them more independence and basically removing himself even more over time. But yes,
actually, I liked when he said that because that's actually good from a boss's perspective of not micromanaging, and it also gives the employees like a sense of like I can do this job. It's like if you put so much faith in it, I think they will do it, as opposed if you're micromanaging and hand holding the whole time, they're gonna act like they need the hand holding. So,
So Jack, I don't know how you run your rentals, but that's more or less how I operate my rentals with is that managers have, well, yeah, below 500, they have the discretion to just take care of it. And a lot of the stuff I never care about. It's just done.
Yeah, I think my I think mine is like 400 right now. The limit, like I'd say just like, yeah, I basically, yeah, approve everything under that. But like recently we had a raccoon infestation, which could actually be pretty pricey. So that's not good. But yeah, we're working on that. And yeah, yeah, that's good. Yeah, because
So
we're now up. We're what's that?
I was going to say, you don't want a second job. The point is not
Yeah,
to have
exactly. Yeah,
the point is not to have a second job. The point is to have passive income.
yeah. So
And emphasis on the word passive.
passive, but anyone that tells you real estate is passive, I think they're lying. Don't listen to
Right. Yeah, that's
them.
very true.
So,
So this is another issue I have with the book.
Let's hear it.
Can I segue into this?
Do it. Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. I wrote this note too. And again, from having the Whole Foods background, I felt like this book gave that. I feel like Tim, I wrote, this guy reeks of John Mackey energy. So John Mackey was the CEO of Whole Foods, and it was very much like, I'm going to teach you how to do this, and this is how you live. But I'm going to have all my employees not live that way. You know, it's like the only way for me to live this life of like, you know, just living just like much more of a richer life. But I need everyone else below me and working for me can't experience this either. They have to go into work. They have to work hourly, and even like they would have peanut butter and jelly in the break room the Thursday before payday because they knew people couldn't afford food. And it's like, how could you let, yeah, like they used to do that on Thursdays because it was like, hey, just like a heads up for you guys, it's the Thursday before payday. We know money can be tight. So here's some peanut butter and jelly. And I'm sorry, I'm not like shitting on Whole Foods. I mean, I gave 7 years of my life to this company, but I'm just saying, like, he just kind of reeks like he's writing this book and he's saying, Tim is writing this book and he's saying, you can live this life. But the people who are working for me cannot be living this life, you know?
Well, that's not well, I mean, the type of life he's describing, but that doesn't necessarily mean they wouldn't be living a good life because some of the salaries he was talking about paying VAs in India would probably, as an hourly rate, be very good. So I think you could still be living a rich life comparatively, right?
Right, but the virtual assistants in India can't be living like Tim. They're the ones who have to be chained to the computer.
Sure. That's true, but society for all of time has been set up like not every single person is living the exact same life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I kind of view it as it's not you're just not living that type of life right now. Like you could work towards it. Like everyone could kind of have that as like an end goal, and you're just at a different point in the progression. Because I kind of view it as like a lot of the people that are like younger or less experienced then complaining about like, well, let's, tax the people that make over X amount of money. Well, they're not really thinking like, oh, well, I'm probably going to be making over that at some point in my life. Like, it's just, that's kind of how I view it. Like, it's just that they're at a, like, earlier in the progression. It's not that they can't live it, but it's just like, they're not going to be living it right now.
Right. But if we're seeing the ways, like nothing is guaranteed. Like we're all millennials and we were told go to college to get a good job. And meanwhile, like people are going to college and they're still working in jobs that you don't need a college degree for. So how can you tell me that, don't worry, years from now, you'll be at that trajectory? And it's like nothing is guaranteed.
That's true.
Of course. Yeah.
That's true. But that, I guess, like I guess the point is to
strive for something,
and also maybe ask questions for the people above you and try to get ideas on like the overall macro structure of how the systems are set up so you can potentially implement that one day too. So, and okay, this is another topic I thought was like genius in this book, and it's probably common, but this is the first time I had heard of like testing out a product before you actually release it. Like to make advertisements for like what was it, a French sailor shirt, or what was it, something like
French
that
French sailor shirt, and then the rock climbing for like
for
yoga.
yoga. So like you make an advertisement for a product before you actually have it.
Mhm.
So like maybe Ashley, you like drumming at one point, like you're like, oh, like I think there could be demand for this drum item. And you make an advertisement, see how many people click on it, and then you get thousands of clicks, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go try to make this now, or
Yeah,
figure
but
out
then
how
I'm
to do
like,
this.
holy crap, now I have to make this. Like, very anxiety inducing.
So I've actually done that with houses I was interested in buying in Nashville before I put an offer. My first house, I put Craigslist ads out for single rooms to gauge how much I thought I could get in rent for the room. Uh,
So
as
were
a
you
realtor,
actually using the address?
I use the general area. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, because you don't have to
Okay.
put an address in for Craigslist, just an enter the
right.
Oh,
area.
Because
okay.
usually, like you can really narrow it down to the cross streets, or you can just use a zip code. So I think
Okay.
probably I was just using the zip code, and it said like, the area will show up as like this, and it was like a big radius on the map of roughly where the house was. Well, the house was in the area listed,
Mhm.
but man,
I guess just I guess yeah. I guess if you were to use pictures, because there was one time I actually went to rent rooms in our house, and I was looking on Craigslist, and someone was using the pictures for my house. And I was like, what? So someone, I don't know if they were, yeah, I mean they were trying to scam. So I reported them, but I guess just be careful if you were to do something like that, potentially.
yeah, it's good advice.
But that was actually, so I went to this financial convention. I've gone the last 2 years actually. It's called FinCon. A lot of the personal finance like creators go, and one of the things a lot of them were talking about is like, they build the community, whether on Twitter, Instagram, blah blah blah, and then it's kind of like they build that first, and then they kind of just ask the people what they want, and then they go build it. Like there's like no guessing. They just like ask them it's what they want, and then they figure it out. So
Well, it's like market research, but it wasn't
yeah,
really like
yeah.
I did that in high school a couple times. Somehow I got it was Miami market research, and they put us like a bunch of high school kids in a room, like behind had the one-way mirror, and they would like test ideas on us and bounce things off. And it was really funny because I just remember this one time. It was for a website called greattowait.com, and it was about teenage abstinence. And it was like they were trying to test it to see how we would react to these things. And I remember because like the ads were so cheery, and I think I did say something like, you're if you want to like convey your point across that like teenage pregnancy is not ideal, and to wait it should be much more somber. And it was really funny because months later there was a Great to Wait commercial, which is a lot more like black and white and somber. And it was like, oh shit, they actually like listen to us.
Yeah, I'm speechless.
It was a job. They paid me. So that was
Oh.
cool. Yeah. And then I remember too, because like we had like notes we could take, but it was really funny too, because like the adults would leave and then all the kids would be talking, and I'm sitting there being like thinking to myself, they can hear us. Like it's a one-way mirror. And I'd be like doodling on the papers. Then when you leave the room, they have to like collect all the notes, and it's like, oh, my drawings. Um, oh, another thing about the book. I'm gonna keep bringing back to the book because that's cool with you guys.
Good,
So
good.
again, 2023, the new rich. Would you consider, I wrote this question down, if I can find it. Okay, so do you think Tim would consider influencers the new rich?
Uh,
Um, I would, probably because they have so
Probably.
much freedom over their time, I would say. Or at
Do
least
they?
that's how that's my perception. Maybe it's totally. I'm sure they work really hard, but I feel like they have a little more autonomy on where they go, what they do, who they hang out with.
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you think, Ashley?
No, I'm asking you guys first. It's Elle's turn.
I would sort of agree. I think you would be granted. You're probably, I mean, those mega influencers, I think, are granted more opportunities of going places and doing things that a average citizen, for better or for worse. Like I don't, I think it's very difficult to become that, but I also think in terms of like what you're creating, like I think the systems that Tim created were legitimate companies that are actually like producing goods and services. When you're, I don't know. I don't generally think being an influencer like is necessarily like that admirable of a goal.
But I think a lot of the influencers, typically, it seems like the progression is you build a community in one of the social networks, you then figure out what they want, you then either make a class or something where you make once and then you sell it. And I guess
Okay.
that end goal part, I would, because then you're kind of removing yourself. But I guess, yeah, I
I,
mean,
it
yeah.
depends on what type. I think for me the designation very much depends on like what type of you know what type of community you're building. Like, is it around like if you excel in something and you're building a community around that, yeah, I'm all for it. But if it's just like, hey, look, I like post these like really stupid cat videos and now like 10 people follow me because I post videos of cats. Like, are you really providing a whole lot? I guess.
Yeah,
I
but
guess
is Tim
like
really providing a lot with his supplements?
Yes, it's providing supplements.
But it's someone's providing cat videos, which is entertaining you while you're chained to your office desk.
Well, I work in a lab, so I'm not apathetic.
I mean,
Okay,
I guess the thing I'll say on that is like you could probably outsource the creation of cat videos, but if you're like now that I think about it, like if you're like one of those like models, I guess you can't really outsource something like that. Like you need to be there to take pictures and blah blah blah. So you I guess from that way you kind of are chained to providing your time to do that. But cat
can
videos
I
we can outsource.
can I specify? So travel bloggers, so like the YouTube travel
Ah,
bloggers, I mean, basically they're doing what Tim is saying. They're able to go out and travel, but would you consider them the new rich? Because they're sometimes making decisions, but I think there's companies that are saying, because if you watch travel videos, like different bloggers, they end up doing the same things. Like they're doing, like one channel is doing a trip to Japan, and then like the next week the other channel is doing a trip to Japan, and then the next week it's another different channel doing a trip to Japan, and it's like so like I don't know. I don't.
so you're saying they're not really choosing to go to Japan. They're kind of going. They're doing that
It's
because
work,
that's what's working. And
or that's what I guess their agents are telling them
is
to do. And are they really enjoying these trips either? Because I mean, you're there and you're taking pictures and you're creating content, and it's like, is that really experiencing the country or is that just work? And technically, that's not a 4 hour work week.
yeah. I guess I would from that perspective. I guess that is not the new rich. I think you've swayed me, Ashley. I think you've swayed me on that one. Yeah.
All right. Actually, how many travel bloggers are you watching on YouTube?
No, I feel like this conversation is a lot about me, and I don't want your listeners to be like, who did you bring on? She does not like the book that was suggested, and she's very odd. But
Well, one of our greatest episodes of all time had our godmother come on, and the first sentence out of her mouth was, "I don't like the book," or "I didn't like the book." So you're in good company.
Oh, that was a
nice,
pirate book, yeah.
nice.
But I was thinking that they're speaking of travel bloggers. that there
You guys
is,
have a,
I think he's like a South African or British guy, but he goes to like these African countries and places in the Middle East where most people would not feel comfortable going. And so that's the only one I've really watched on YouTube. But where was I going with that? I don't know. But from my view, I guess he actually was genuinely curious about those places because I had never seen anyone go to like Ghana and really like walk around and talk with people like he was doing.
Mhm.
sort of as a sidebar, didn't you guys have a friend that was some like travel blogger or something? Uh, Jack, like this Charlotte, probably like
She
6 years
did for
ago.
a little bit. I don't think she was still she's not still doing that, but she tried to make it work, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, well, shall we close it out? What any other topics we want to touch before closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I want to, do the least amount of work to make the most amount of money and retire in, a couple years.
So so what product are you selling? Al, is there anything you can sell to the chemists of the world?
I
You
think
are inside the chemist's brain. You know what they
yeah,
want.
I think so it's a weird thing, and I someone actually brought this up to me, and I just saw it. The amount of pickleball content to pickleball players, that ratio is massive. Like, seems like every other person that plays makes pickleball content. Uh,
Really?
so I was thinking, because I sort of started thinking about doing like instructional videos on it, but then I like realized that everyone else in like their mother already does instructional videos on it. So I
Maybe
feel
you
like
should
that
do
market.
like maybe you could go. Are they mostly like technique things or strategy or
Yeah, it's mainly about there's such a big influx of people starting. It's mainly about getting from in the designation range, usually from like, you know, beginner to like 4.0. That's what most of the content is based around. And then there's a smaller subset of getting from like 4.0 to above like 4.0 plus. Uh, so
maybe you could
a
make a
couple,
DVD and sell it, Al?
maybe, yeah, maybe.
Or you know what pickleball content I saw recently that I really enjoyed was Eli Manning playing Gronk in pickleball. Maybe you could challenge like celebrities to pickleball and then make it a little more fun. I don't know.
Okay, that would be fun. I did not see that though.
It's hilarious. You should definitely watch that.
Okay.
Okay, Ashley, is there any products you're going to be selling to the medical community or
No,
service? No?
this is not my lifestyle. I do not want. I don't. Just gonna. I don't know. I'll let you know if I
Okay,
decide
okay.
anything. I have
Keep,
nothing.
keep,
I have nothing to
yeah.
sell.
I guess we'll have to have you back on so you can tell us if you decided to sell something. Or maybe it could be a plot twist and you sold something and then you come back on.
Maybe. Or I gotta come out on your show and market test it. Okay, guys, I have this idea for a product. But
Well, Jack, what about you? We all know you're already selling land. You're
So on
doing
land, saw a couple books on Amazon. I did decide to make another push. So a couple of years ago, I released this goal journal to help actuaries prepare for their exams. And I didn't really push it that hard. Like, it sold on Amazon, but initially I was going to the different universities that have actuarial programs and just saying like, do you want to buy like a block, like a whole bulk order of books for your students? And I haven't done that in a couple of years, so I'm going to pay someone to go get updated emails and yeah, see if they want to buy some bulk shipments books. And so that's I guess what I'm cooking or on the horizon in the near term.
nice.
So we'll see. But yeah, you know what? Another thing I did was so he said the things that are in like the $50 to $200 seem to like better margins, better advertising. So what I did was I jacked up the price on Amazon
Your name, Jack. Jacked up the price. Can that be your business?
There you go.
Sorry.
So I jacked up the price from like $30 to $50. And now I'm gonna so now I've anchored the universities to say, oh, it's like $50 like retail. And I'm gonna offer it to them for like $12 on for a bulk shipment. So like $12 a book. And it costs like about $4 to print. So yeah, that's the so that's what I'll pitch. So I already put up a listing on Upwork. Upwork is this platform to find like freelancers and stuff. So I found a guy to go through and get me more emails. So, and phone numbers. So we'll see. But yeah, that's it.
And then you should put a link on the bottom of the podcast to the book that you're talking about.
There you
so
go.
People can buy it.
There you go.
You should hire me, Jack.
I have hired you before, Ashley. You were actually very pivotal in the FIFA rankings recording for the sports model. Yeah,
That's
for
right.
Make Better Bets. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we lose money on that?
Yeah, second.
I have nothing. That's none of mine.
We ended up actually. Oh no! I think what Ashley did was she recorded.
It was the countries. I kept having to go to that website.
The international appearances for each team, and I ended up not using that factor in the final one. But the book sales in that book have made up for our losses. Not that you get to partake in that, Al, but. So. Okay.
You want to take a subject?
Sure. So with that, Ashley, it's been a pleasure having you on. Hopefully you'll be on in the future.
Yeah, I'm invited. I can come back. I would love to.
Absolutely.
This is a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Good. Glad. Yeah, it's been great to have you on, and hopefully people got some value from this. So please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you'd like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind, a great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to this would be greatly appreciated. Lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. I am Jack Allwild. With me, as always, is Alex Allwild. And Al, what are we doing next time?
It's not. Our next episode will not be a traditional book, but we are talking with a investment specialist in the uranium sector. So that will be a little interesting, a little different.
Wait, aren't we doing the book draft? Isn't that the next episode?
No, the next episode will be with Andrew.
Really? Okay, editor, you need to cut out this segment.
Okay, the next episode will be the book draft. Cool. Wasn't the plan to meet with Andrew like June 12th that week?
I don't think we finalized anything. Plus, there's no. Yeah, well, if we want to do that, we need to tell them because we didn't message.
Yeah, we didn't respond. Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay. Here, I'll click stop. And
there's a special announcement on the book draft. We'll be doing each of us picking one classic, which is something. So we'll be branching outside of our, I guess, normal repertoire.
Wait, like classic fiction?
No, just classic.
Like Ashley,
The Catcher in the Rye, or like
no, actually like a classic.
I don't get it.
Just think about what you consider a classic, and that's something that you may pick.
Well, I am looking forward to listening to this new episode of the book draft, so I know what you guys are talking about.
And we will post a schedule on Facebook probably and the website.
And probably Instagram.
Yeah. So with that, take care.